Donald Deke Kersey is our guest right now. Deke, good morning. Thanks for being with us. Great to have you along, sir.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Could you hear us okay? I'm afraid I didn't have your button pushed, so I'm not sure how much you heard of your introduction, but we appreciate you being on the air, sir. Let's talk about this special election that's coming up, and I understand it is, according to the press release from Secretary of State Warner's office, nearly $2 million in expense to do this?
It may be. We have sent out a survey to our counties, and the majority of them have gotten back with us already within almost a 48-hour period. And we have yet to sit down with the governor's office to go over all of the expenses we anticipate. So I'm not comfortable giving you a number just yet, but it's not going to be cheap by any means. Well, but we're doing our best to keep it as low as possible.
I know that in the release that was sent out, it was quoted as being between the anticipated cost of this election, $1.8 to $2 million. So I'm not trying to pin that on you or anything, but
sure.
That is a number being thrown out there by the Secretary's staff right now. Tell me what's involved in putting on a special election. This one is called for Saturday, October 7th.
It's the same as every other election, but in a much tighter time frame. You have to hire all your poll workers and make sure your precincts are available. If a county has a precinct that's not available, they have to make certain changes within a requisite amount of time and notify all the affected voters whose precincts may change. You have to pay all of your supply clerks and anybody escorting them to and from the polls on election day and on election night, and any overtime costs to your employees, and of course, you have to pay for your election supplies, depending on whether you run a paper ballot election or an electronic election, which has yet to be determined in this case. So there are a lot of logistical things that go into it, and hard costs as well.
Donald, this is David. Does this expense come out of the county budgets, or does the state reimburse the counties?
It's reimbursed by whoever calls the election. So in this case, the governor's office will reimburse the counties for their expenses for the special election.
Oh, okay. Now, did you have any participation leading up to the decision to hold the election on October 7th, or is that a unilateral decision made by the governor without consultation from anyone else who might have something to do with it?
We had limited conversations with the governor's office, and they were just pretty generic conversations about what's involved, what could we expect out of costs, and we did our best to look at historical data that was kept on file from administration to administration here in our office to give them an estimate of that.
Is this considered by your office to be a good thing to be having this election on October 7th, or is it being encouraged by the local county election offices, or is this just a big pain in the neck to have to do this on October 7th?
We don't have an opinion on that at all. Our job is to administer the election, and the same as county clerks, and whatever our governor asks us to do, we will do.
But we do know this, and I do know that Secretary Warner is very, very committed to high voter turnout, making sure that everyone who can shows up for elections. He's very committed to that goal. Yet you and I both know that when you have a special election in the middle of October on a Saturday, you're not going to get high voter turnout. I wonder why the election couldn't have waited until next May when there's already a primary election being scheduled.
That's a good question, I think, for the governor's office. But the issue you pointed out, which is the potential for low voter turnout, is exactly why we're very appreciative for you having us on this show. Because with all the deadlines in front of us and the short time frame we have, it's the best way we can get the turnout numbers increased is by educating the public, and getting out there and talking about it as much as possible.
Well, you're absolutely right. We do have to get the word out because this, in many ways, this is a pretty important election. A yes vote means that we're probably going to pay a little bit and have a few good roads around the state. A no vote will mean that we're not probably going to have a few good roads around the state, but we won't be paying the tax. So maybe we'll have a higher voter turnout because it actually does sort of directly affect people, either their pocketbook or the roads they drive on.
Yeah, you're right. I think another thing that's going to help our turnout numbers for this election are the serious list maintenance efforts that our offices partnered with the county clerks with since January. And the county clerks really, I'd love to give a shout out to all of them listening today. They have done a phenomenal job cleaning up their rolls and working with our office and letting us know what they need to get their job done. Because of them, we have over 63,000 outdated voter registrations off the rolls now. The most recent list maintenance project we had was removing the deceased voter registrations off the list, and to date, that's 6,300 names of folks who have been deceased who's now been removed from the rolls, and that's due in full part to the county clerks.
So we had 63,000 people have been removed from the voter rolls, 6,300 because they had passed away and not been taken off the rolls. That's about 10%. What about the other, whatever that is, 60,000 or so? How do they get categorized? In other words, why were there 60,000 alive people still on the voter rolls that shouldn't have been?
It could be a number of things. Folks move from county to county. When you update your registration, the one county will cancel you. So the flip side of that is you register to vote again. So we have 16,951 new registrations since January. So that's another 16,000 people we anticipate voting in this election. So other things that may increase your canceled registrations would be convicted of a felony. If you're convicted or you're serving a sentence for a conviction of a felony on parole or on probation for a conviction of a felony, your name is removed from the rolls. If you move out of states, things of that nature will make that number increase.
Is there the opportunity to appeal to be reinstated if you've been convicted of a felony, Donald, to be a reinstated voter?
Yeah, you don't have to appeal at all. It's actually your right as soon as you're done serving your conviction to re-register to vote.
Oh, so it's not for life. You get zapped for a crime and then you have to be out. Because I think that there was a time when I believed that once you're convicted of a felony,
you're done. Yeah.
But sometimes I believe things without looking at the facts too. So that's good to know.
Yeah, that's a common misconception. Once you finish serving your sentence, your felony sentence, then you are entitled to re-register to vote.
My question for you is in security of the vote itself, Donald, and we're talking with Donald Deke Kersey, Director of the Elections Division in the Secretary of State's office. I know in the precinct where I live, it used to be you'd go in and there was a touch screen and you'd get your vote done electronically, and then that was changed back to something that's a bit more manual because they were concerned about the security of the vote once you cast it. Where are we in the state of West Virginia in regards to the security of the votes we cast?
Well, I'm not sure the change you're referring to, but just generally speaking, voting machines themselves are certified by the EAC, which is the Election Assistance Commission. It's the federal commission that does all sorts of things for elections, and one is certify electronic voting machines. So once the EAC certifies an electronic voting machine, and of course they vet it, they give it to their tech guys and their computer guys and their hardware guys, and they see what sorts of security issues there are, and if none, then they'll certify it. Then our state election commission will review the EAC's findings and do their own analysis and put it through the gauntlet of tech testing and make sure that it's up to par. And once it all goes through the SEC and the EAC, then we certify the voting machine. Then the counties are allowed to purchase them and use them. So these machines have been extremely vetted before they even hit the counties. And one thing that folks don't know about the machines is themselves, they never touch the internet. So if you want to hack a voting machine, I don't even know how you do it, to be honest with you. It just never touches the internet.
Yeah, I'm glad, Donald, that you brought that up because that helps, I think, to clear up a misconception that's out there in relation to Russian influence. in the elections, and people need to stop believing that they actually hacked into voting machines and influenced them in some way. I mean, they may have influenced the election in other ways. We'll find that out, I'm sure, at the end of this investigation. But I actually do talk to people who think that they're concerned that they actually, through cyberspace, hacked into voting machines and altered them in some way. That did not happen anywhere in the country in 2016.
No, to the best of my knowledge, our state has not been approached by DHS or National Guard or any other security agency that would know this information and has told us that we have somehow been infiltrated. That has never been told to us by any means. There were pings and things of that nature on our server, but again, our voting machines never touch the internet, so that's not a concern.
Tell me, when the machines are closed at the end of election night and those totals come out of those machines, how do those totals then get across the state? Let's say we're voting in for statewide offices like a governor's race then. Who does the tabulating, and how is the network connected to know what each county's totals were?
It's sort of a manual / electronic process. Each machine has, depending on the type of machine your county has, it has some form of memory stick, we'll call it. It could be a flash drive or a little card that's programmed and secure and encrypted. It goes from the county precinct to a central counting location where there's a machine, it's a counter, and it literally just tabulates what's on that card. And then at the end of the day, it'll spit out a number, and your county clerk will have it, and there's your results.
Okay, but are we talking about, when we're talking about that stick, you, as it goes to a central location, are we driving that stick to the central location? Does it get sent via email, or and then when the clerk gets it, how do they get those numbers to where they're supposed to go?
The clerk handles the transportation, but it is a physical transport. It's similar to a police officer transporting a piece of evidence, something of that nature.
Okay.
It doesn't hit the internet or anything like that. It's carried in the county clerk program or plans and oversees that process.
All right. Then how does the county clerk get those numbers statewide to be tabulated?
The clerk takes your we'll call it a stick, and puts it in the tabulator. It's a machine, and you put all your sticks in the tabulator, and at the end of the night, it'll give you a total.
Okay, so that's a private network that goes across the state, or am I missing something?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Yeah, so each county clerk does this at the end of the day, and how does that information, I'm maybe I'm a little slow this morning, but help me out. How does that information then get to be a statewide tabulation? Is it on a network of some sort?
Yes, I was missing your question, sorry. We don't tabulate, the Secretary of State's office doesn't tabulate anything, so we will receive the unofficial results from each county as they come in, and in years past we've had election night reporting software that they input the results on their end on a computer unofficially, and it's like that. The information comes to us on a county by county basis.
So if we're following election night results as we do, primary and general elections, in the evening, and we're getting slow information out of a county, let's say, that's not the Secretary of State's, if you will, fault, for lack of a better way of putting it. That would usually be a glitch at the county level, not the state level.
A number of things could happen. Nothing's perfect, and no human's perfect. But yes, generally speaking.
Well, I think we had a situation here last year where I think there were so many people trying to get information all at once that they crashed the system. I think is what happened.
It was the primary, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was in the primary. We were couldn't get results out, and the reason was they just were overblown with people, trying to get information out of it, and they couldn't handle all the people coming in. I think that's what we were told back then. But it was a slow night.
I wasn't here at that time. I came in January, so I couldn't speak to that. But I think you're remembering correctly as I do.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. What matters it just annoys people who are on the radio trying to get results.
I know it annoyed us.
I'm sure the average person, they could care less, right? That Dave and Rob couldn't get their results fast enough. So it's certainly not cataclysmic.
Whatever we can do, we'll try and make sure we have the best technology that exists so that doesn't happen in the future.
Well, bottom line, what we need to know now is that we are going to have an election on October the 7th. It's going to be held on a Saturday. It's going to be an up or down vote on whether or not there should be a road measure passed. The yes vote on that measure will result in additional funding for the state of West Virginia, right, to have new roads built. I don't think it says where those new roads are going to be built. It just says there's going to be more money to build them. Too bad that's not in the bill, right?
I think everybody would vote for roads in their county.
Oh yeah, the most important road is the one you drive on, right? We're all for paying for new roads if we drive on them. We're not so crazy about roads down in Huntington or whatever. Nothing against Huntington. It's just that we're up here.
Unless you're going to a Marshall game.
Exactly.
Deke, thanks for your time this morning. We very much appreciate it. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that we should have?
Just one last thing. I'm sorry that Secretary Warner was not able to join us this morning, but thanks again for having me and helping us get out and about and speak now about the special election. And one last thing I'd like to mention for all the folks listening today, September 18th is the voter registration deadline for this special election. It's set by code a certain number of days before the election. I believe it's 19 days before the election. So please get out to your county clerk's offices, get online or get online and register to vote.
And this is for Saturday, October 7th. The deadline is September, did you say 18 or 19? 18. What will be the hours?
That was some pretty good cheerleading, by the way. Please get out and vote. That was good.
What will be the hours of the election on the 7th? Do we know that yet?
Election day is from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. on Election day. And early voting hours depend on your business hours of where you're holding early voting, but it will be held on the Saturday before the election from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Those times are set by code.
All right, very good. Thank you so much. We do very much appreciate it.
Thank you both very much.